So I've got a 5-year-old who asked me the other day to build him a special shield. Now it's not just any shield that he wants to go and play with. He watched the Captain America, the first Avenger movie, and he wanted the shield with the point at the bottom, the curve at the top, and all that fun stuff. And he wasn't taking no for an answer, so I figured if we're going to build something, we may as well do it right. So I've never done any costume prop making or anything like that. I've built some stuff out of wood, some stuff out of metal, and I kind of tinker a bit, but this is kind of a first for me, trying to make a half decently close replica of something I've seen in a movie before. So I'll walk you through the steps of what I did. It's by no means gospel or anything like that, but we're going to work with some materials I've never worked with before and try it and see how it works. So the first thing I did is I needed to find out find a picture of it, what it looked like, some reference material or something like that. So I went to the good old Google, hoping that I'd find someone on the RPF or another place like that that would have done all the grunt work for me, a picture with some dimensions on it so I could draw it to size and scale it down to a 5-year-old. The problem with that is it seems like everyone builds their own Captain America shields. I couldn't find one. There's probably one there, but I don't have much experience on some of those sites, and all I could find for pictures was this one. So this is relatively simple. What I kind of thought was, I don't know anything about it. All I know is the size of my son. So what I did was I measured his forearm from the ends of his fingers to his elbow, added on to his elbow right here, added on a little bit of extra fudge so the shield covers his forearm. Then I figured I wanted to put his forearm right around here, kind of underneath the stars and stuff like that. So when I figured out what length his arm was and the space I needed, I took a measurement on this picture with the measurement that I wanted, figured out what that was on a scale. So I just took a regular drafting scale. You could use a regular ruler or whatever, it doesn't matter. Figured out how many lines was on here and divided the number of inches by that many lines, and it gave me a scale. So on this one, I had to times everything I measured by 1.77 to get the size of this. So for example, I'm not sure how well you can see it here, but my stripes here ended up 1.5 inches. I ended up approximately 17.25 inches tall, about 13.5 inches wide and stuff like that. So once I did that, kind of found the center of the stars, took a bunch of measurements, confirmed my dimensions and stuff, I had to draw it out because I wanted to make myself a paper template and then a cardboard template, and then I was going to use a piece of 1/8 inch acrylic to make it. I wanted to give him something that's durable that he could drop, but yet light enough that a little kid can carry around at Halloween and stuff like that for the whole day, not get tired and want to just leave in the truck. So fortunately with my work, I've got access to AutoCAD. So I just took those dimensions, and I'll see if I can bring you over there to show you what it looks like. Okay. Sorry, I don't have like any good video capture and stuff like that. Drew a rectangle, and you could probably do this in Google SketchUp or there's all sorts of other drafting software that's free that you could get. This is just what I had access to and stuff. I'm going to try and play with some more different drafting software in the future. But I just drew a rectangle, the outside shape of the shield I wanted, and then I just started offsetting some lines. If you can post any questions, whatever, if you have anything that comes up. I kind of apologize. I started this the other night, and then I thought that maybe I should make a video on about how it was done or something like that. So we're going to be taking part like a quarter of the way, 1/5 of the way through the process or something. All I've basically gotten is it drawn. So I drew these, I offset some lines for the verticals on my upper side. The hard part was this curve on the top because there's no real information on it, and it turns out that forming a nice curve is a little difficult Like you can do something with a point on it easy enough, or some aggressive curves, but to get a nice gradual curve like this was a bit of a pain. So I used the spline function, had to change it into a polyline and make it so that I had some points to grab, and then all I did was I was grabbing nodes and shifting and pulling and kind of smoothing it all out. This is nothing that you couldn't do by hand. Like if I didn't have this program, I would have probably just did a connect the dots, drew a grid work on a piece of paper, and then just did my best to hand round it out. But I took an extra 15-20 minutes, probably more than I should have, to try and make that curve all nice. And then looked in at the bottom of the stars in the blue area on there, there's a little bit of a curve, it doesn't come flat over, so I roughly figured out what that was, drew a nice little arc in there to smooth everything out. And to figure out the stars, what I ended up having to do was I had to find the radius of the star. So in order to find the center of the star, to kind of get a rough idea of what the radiuses and stuff were, I kind of figured out that if you draw a line from a point to the inside corner of the stars and go around, you end up with a nice center point there, which you can draw a circle from. And then so my radius ended up being about, let's see here, I think it's about 2 1/4 inches on the radius of my circle. Yeah, 2 1/4 inches. So then on the big star, so then I took that circle, I drew a circle that was 2 1/4 inches with a radius in it, and then I put a pentagon inside, which turns out is the perfect shape for that star. And in order to make a star out of that, I just started drawing lines from the corners to the middle of the opposing lines, just to kind of get where my points and stuff like that go on my star. And then I had to figure out the inside diameter circle, because you get an outside diameter that goes around all the points, and then there's another inside diameter that goes from the center out to these points here. And that dimension ended up being pretty close to 1 inch, I believe. So if I take that and take a dimension on here, yeah, it was 1 inch. So I went over to my other picture, drew my last line in there. Looks like I'm kind of jury-rigging stuff here and not finishing my steps and stuff like that. So if I draw a circle, it starts there, and put a radius of 1 inch on it, there. And then now all you have to do to make your star is just start connecting points. You can work from here down to there, up, back it up to there, down to there, over to there, down there, 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 and there. And delete out the stuff in the middle. Get rid of that pesky little circle in the middle. And then there's your first star. So I did the exact same thing with the smaller stars. Just ended up using, obviously, a couple smaller dimensions and stuff like that. And it actually went together pretty well. Kind of had to fudge some dimensions because I'm dealing with a piece of paper that's got fuzzy lines and it's all small and stuff like that. So I ended up, what I had to do for the side here is I kind of figured out where the width was, where my son's arm would be, and where this line was, put in some rough dimensions, and then I just ended up putting in a long spline, which is basically a curved line that you can manipulate a little bit, and I just ended up tweaking the slope of it so that right at this point here it didn't get wider. It had the tendency, it wanted to, as I was putting the line in, it wanted to bow out from this point to this point, and I didn't want it to do that. I wanted it to come in, so I just ended up curling my line in until it came inside this point, and then that's kind of what defined the bottom shape of my shield. So it actually worked out not too bad. And so now the overall rectangle here is, like I said, about 13.5 inches by 17.25 inches, which is bigger than any piece of paper that I have. I've got a large format printer that can print 11 by 17 paper that I use for my work, but that's still not quite big enough. So what I did is I drew a line right through the middle of, well, roughly the middle anyways, of my picture, just to give me a reference point, and then I printed it in 2 pieces. I did a box around here. I printed it all at 1:1, and then so once that's done, I printed it at 1:1. It came out in 2 sheets. You end up with, here, let me set you back up over here. Sorry for the amateurness of this whole thing or whatever, but yeah, it's a learning experience for me and everyone else. It's the first video I've ever done, so you end up with this, which turned out a lot better than I thought. It kind of gave me a good accurate size for a 5-year-old and stuff like that. It probably turns out, I would imagine, to be close to half the size, maybe a little less than comparatively what would have been used in the movie. Pretty accurate to what they've got there, I think. But we're gonna try and build this. So we're gonna switch over to the shop where the tools and stuff like that are and see how it works. Okay, so here we are in the shop. As I said before, I'm part way through this, not very far, only about a quarter of the way through, maybe not even. So like I said before, I wanted to make it durable and light. So what I ended up doing was I had a sheet of acrylic. It's a 2 foot by 4 foot sheet of not quite 1/8 inch, maybe between 3/32 and 1/8 of an inch. Who knows? It might even be close to 3/32 or bang on 3/32. We're gonna try and cut that. So, but the first thing I needed to do was I needed to make a template. And for that, I had a piece of 1/8 inch hardboard kicking around. I like using hardboard for my templates because it's real easy to work with, super simple to shape, and it doesn't break the bank to make it. And then if you make one and you make a hardboard template, if someone wants another one, you don't have to go through the whole process of transferring from paper and stuff. So what I ended up doing was I had a piece of hardboard a little bigger than this. I took my piece of paper, I laid it on, I taped it in a couple spots. You can see tape marks here, here, and up here. And then I just took a really fat black marker and I made sure that when I traced the edge of the template here, you can kind of see how it's all black. I went and I made sure that I got, when I went over it, that I got black on the template as well as the paper, which when I pulled the paper off, it left a nice thick black line in there that I could rough cut this to on the bandsaw. So I took it to the bandsaw over there in the corner. It's kind of hiding over there. Took it to the bandsaw. I cut down the thick black line. I made sure that I didn't go right to the inside edge to leave me room to shape it and stuff like that. So I left about a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch in places, and then I took it over here to the sander. And I ran it around the sander and smoothed it out to the lines to get as close a shape as humanly possible. Well, that I could do anyways. And then so I did that, got this made. And then that leaves us to transferring and cutting on the plastic, on the plexiglass here, or the acrylic. I've never cut acrylic before, and all the reading and stuff like that I've read on is you can use twist router bits at a slow speed. Now you can get an up twist, a down twist, or whatever. You can use a metal saw blade and a table saw. You can use a jigsaw that's made for fine cut, with a blade that's made for fine cutting, almost like a scroll saw blade, or you can use a knife. So I've got curves, so that it immediately takes out table saw, the table saw, and what was the other one? Oh yeah, table saw and the knife. So I can't score it, I can't cut it with those things. So I am going to cut a piece of plexiglass off big enough for my shield to fit on. I'm going to mark it out, and I'm going to try to see if my scroll saw will fit. I've got an old scroll saw here that I don't use very often, but if I can run this thing down the side of the scroll saw, I'm thinking that might be the case. As long as I can keep it from chattering on the base and stuff like that, we should be okay. So I'm going to get that set up and then we'll be back. Okay, so let's try and cut this sheet to size. I got my eye protection on, my hearing protection, because for one, you can never be too safe, and two, I really don't know what's going to happen when I cut this, so I want to make sure if something flies off that, if I catch it in the teeth is bad enough, the eyes is kind of permanent, not much you can do about. So what I've got done so far is I'm going to use the table saw. I've got an 80 tooth blade in the table saw. I know it's not a metal blade and stuff like that, but I don't have one, so we're gonna try this. I think it's got enough teeth on it. I'm hoping it doesn't heat up and melt anything. If it does, I'm gonna cut it plenty big enough so that I've got some waste and stuff like that, and I'm gonna try and keep it pressed down firm enough so it doesn't chatter. The shield's gonna be about 13.5 inches wide, so I've got the table saw set for a whopping 14 inches. I'd want a little bit of waste, but not too much. This stuff isn't too cheap. And then I just set up a roller stand in the back at the same height as the table saw, so I can have a little bit of extra support. I should actually probably move that a little bit closer to the saw, just because we're a little too far away, and it's only 2 feet deep. So I just want to make sure that it's got a little something to roll off to, so I can kind of support it and stuff like that, and maybe it won't go flying off on me. So let's see if we can set you up where you guys can see something. It's gonna be, well, not gonna lie, it's gonna be noisy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I've got hearing protection. You guys might want to turn down the volume a little bit. I'm not sure how loud it'll come across, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be loud. Turn on my dust collector. Well, that went a little better than expected. I wasn't really sure what to expect, but all things considered, not too bad. I do highly recommend eye protection when you're cutting that, because the whole time I was cutting it, let's see if I can get you out of the light here. The whole time I was cutting it, I was getting hit in the face with little shards of plastic. So I haven't looked at it yet, but the cut that we made, I'm not sure how well you can see it here. It's a little jagged, but it's not terrible. I think we'll be able to sand something similar out. I left the plastic coating on because everything I read was don't take the plastic coating off of your plexiglass until you're ready to take it off and do your painting and stuff like that, because it scratches apparently really easily, so you don't want to mess around too much. I'm not going to worry about too much scratches if I get it on this, because I'm hoping that the paint I'm using will cover it up. And two, it's a shield. If it has to be a little battle worn, it has to be a little battle worn. So now I've got to set up to transfer my design onto the acrylic. So I'm going to get some stuff sorted out for that, and then we're going to try and cut out the shape of a shield. Be right back. Okay, so I'm going to transfer the paper here, or the pattern, and I thought that it was going to be simple and I could just take a fine point marker and do some drawing and stuff like that on the plastic, trace it out. But it turns out that that line isn't very easy to see. It doesn't transfer very well. It's kind of dull and stuff like that. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm just going to use a straight edge knife with a brand new blade, and hopefully I can score it, which gives you a not too bad a line. It's definitely easier to see than that black is. So I'm going to try and go around the whole outside with this blade and try and get myself a nice good line to follow. I clamped it down in 2 spots, so hopefully it doesn't move, because I'm going to have to push pretty hard. And we'll see how it works and kind of hope for the best. Gotta push down nice and tight. Hopefully this is working. Like I said, first time with plexiglass. There's probably a couple people out there, or more than a couple I would imagine, saying that's not how you do it, you fool. There's a better way to do it. But so far I don't know what the best way to do it is, so we're kind of learning together here. Well, I'm thinking learning together, but we'll see. This might not be, well, it's a form of learning anyways. You can always screw up and still learn something. Oh, look at that. That stuff's hard enough. I broke the tip off the end of my blade already. Oh, that's not bad at all, actually. I did knock off a bit of the corner. We'll have to see. I might have to try and duplicate that on the other side. I'm not sure if you can see there, but I went a little slipped in underneath the corner of the template. So I might just knock the other corner off the same, or crap, it's less than a 1/16 of an inch. We might just call her good enough once we get her cut out and shaped. So I think I'm going to set up the scroll saw. I'll put you up here so you guys aren't looking at the table. I think we'll hook up the scroll saw and see if we can get this thing cut out. Sure hope it works, because I don't really have much of a fine-tooth blade for my jigsaw to do it with. Well, we'll set her up and give her a try, see what happens. We are back. Okay, so I'm just about ready to cut this. I just wanted to point out one thing to anyone who's got a big shop, small shop, more importantly probably a small shop. You don't like cords and stuff laying all over the place. What I got, and I absolutely love, is way up there, a retractable cord reel. I mount it in the middle of the shop, and then it allows me to pull out the cord whenever I want to use it, drag it to the tools I want to use it on, and then put it back, so you're not constantly working around cords. So yeah, I drug it across the floor there, hooked it up to my scroll saw, because I don't use my scroll saw enough to dedicate an entire part to the shop to it, so I keep it in the cupboard and I just bring it out whenever I need it. So we're gonna try this, see how it works. Again, I'm not really sure how it's gonna work. I gotta make sure I keep the material from chattering somehow by the sounds of it and stuff. So I don't even know if I should use a high speed on the scroll saw and a fast feed rate, because I know you don't want it to heat up, or a low speed and a slow feed rate. So I'm gonna try high speed, high feed, or a half decent feed rate, and just lop the corner off of this, see how that works. And if it looks like it's gonna work, we'll continue on. And I'll cut close to the line, but not right at the line, so I can clean it up on the sander later. That should work, I think. And then if that doesn't work, we'll try slowing the speed down and slowing my feed rate down and try and figure out something that works. Okay, we're getting ready to sand here. I just wanted to show you the sander that I use. I've got a rigid oscillating belt / drum sander. So down here, it keeps all the belt attachments and stuff like that. It goes up and down and spins. I like it. It's can be a little difficult to set up and level out your bed, but once you get it set up, it's pretty good. I do want to, one day, I'm not even looking at you guys. I do want to one day get a disc sander, a little easier for square edges and stuff. I think it'd be real handy to have, but I don't have the extra cash right now, and make do with what you have, right? So I'm gonna fire everything up here and we'll see if we can round it out and make it look nice and smooth. There, it's, see, you could tell it kind of spent a little bit too much time there. It roughed it all up, but I'm gonna just, okay, see that? There, it got a little roughy and a little melty, kind of ugly. I'm gonna quickly grab a piece of 220 grit sandpaper and see if we can smooth that out. So just give it a little quick buff, see what it does. Now I said, I don't care if it's clear, I do want it smooth though. Now this piece of 220 grit sandpaper has been fairly well used. I know you should get new paper all the time and stuff, but I don't want anything super abrasive. I'm thinking a wore out piece of 220 grit is probably a good option, just because I don't want to be too aggressive. I don't want to be gouging a bunch of material. But the way it's going, I might have to grab a fresh one. Yeah, not too bad though. Oh yeah, it's cleaning it up. See? Slowly but surely, we're getting there. You know what, I'm going to sand this up and I'll bring you back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I've got the sanding done. We got it right here, I guess. Now it's really hard to tell, but if we take a look at it, all of those chalky white marks are gone now. It looks a little wonky and foggy because some of the dust from the plexiglass ended up underneath the plastic film. But all in all, It's not too bad, I'm pretty happy. I think if I had to buff it out, I probably could. But like I said, it's all getting painted anyways, so I shouldn't need to. That's about all I can do for a couple of, it won't take too long and I'll have her finished up. Okay, talk to you then. Later.